Howdy, mates. Good afternoon. I should say evening, more like. It is Monday, October 9th, 2023. And this also, as a matter of fact, designates Indigenous Peoples Day, which refers to all of the known tribes that were either formerly or still currently inhabit the planet. But especially it pertains to North and South America specifically. Rather than it dedicating to a cruel man by the infamous name of Christopher Columbus, because I could go on about him for a while, but he doesn't deserve any respect. He basically saw the Taino, that was the tribe that he ran into, down in the Caribbean islands and Hispaniola. He basically thought that they were ideal for essentially slave labor. And historically, he was known to basically perform genocide among those people. And so it got so extreme, his rule, that even the country of Spain and its leaders wanted to consider bringing him back and even imprisoning him. Like that's how criminal his activity was. And so, rather than it being that, we focus it upon the indigenous people who either have passed on, and it dedicates to those who carry on the legacy of their ancestors. Well, in fact, actually, I'm near what is known as Amana, Iowa. And as a matter of fact, there's known to be up to 7 separate colonies. Today, I actually explored in the main Amana, which was built clear back in 1855. I didn't do any videos out there, but I do have images, and I will soon be sharing those. I'll actually try to make sure that when I do a thumbnail for this film, I'll provide a photo for those of you who may not be on Facebook. But you have to think this very ground that we're walking on was also once roamed by the indigenous. But anyway, a little backstory on Amana. You figure it's in the mid-19th century. Land was starting to become more and more available to those who were living further east, whether it was Ohio or Pennsylvania, even New York State. A group of German people known as the Inspirationists, which that particular group started back in the 1700s. One of those leaders, by the name of Christian Metz, he immigrated over to New York State, which, if I recall, that was back in the 1830s, if I'm not mistaken. And he lived there for a few years, and then he made his way over to this part of Iowa. And you could say how the way of living it was for Amana was it was a very communal based form of living. So essentially there were really no other outsiders whatsoever. They had their own little community, as it were. But it wasn't really until, if I recall, it wasn't really until like the 1920s, going into the 30s, that they started to have a bit more outside influence. Because they started to realize that more and more of that outside world was starting to become more commonplace. And so they probably figured they might as well start coexisting with the current trends of society. But when you go to those colonies, it's very German based. Whether it's the architecture, the crafts, the food, especially. It's quite neat. Because most of the immigrants who initially settled into Iowa, most of them came from German descent. So they still carried on a piece of that culture with them here. So, anyway, hope you guys are having a magnanimous Monday. And fall is finally making its way here. A season with which I have not really been able to experience for a couple of years. So, alright, you guys. Have a good one. Take care. And of course, Journey on a Journey is onwards. Take care, folks. See ya.